это Чарло, будь это Кроуфорд, будь это Фундора, Спенс, не имеет никакого значения. Приоритет это пояса. Если нету пояса,
$250 million. Let that figure marinate in your mind for a second. $250 million sitting on a table in Saudi Arabia, sealed with a golden ink signature that just blew the hinges off the entire sport of boxing. For 3 agonizing years, they told us this fight was a pipe dream. They told us the business of boxing would execute it before it ever breathed fresh air. They said Terence "Bud" Crawford was too big, too legendary, and far too focused on chasing history at super middleweight to ever look back at the young lion hunting him from below. They said Jaron "Boots" Ennis was the ultimate boogeyman. A lethal, high-volume killing machine that nobody in their right mind with a pristine record would dare touch without a forced sanctioning order. Well, wipe whatever you thought you knew off the table right now. Because late last night, behind locked doors at a private estate in Riyadh, the impossible contract was finally signed. March 2027, Las Vegas, Nevada. Terence "Bud" Crawford versus Jaron "Boots" Ennis. It is officially locked, loaded, and signed in cold blood. The title on the leaked contract memo didn't mince words, and neither did the camps when the ink dried. One source inside Crawford's inner circle reportedly looked straight into the camera of a leaked locker room video and shouted the 7 words that are currently setting the internet ablaze. $250 million deal done. BTH. Asterisk, this isn't just another pay-per-view main event. This is the ultimate generational reckoning. The undisputed pound-for-pound king, a cold-blooded assassin who dismantled Errol Spence Jr., shocked the world against Canelo Alvarez, and hasn't felt the sting of defeat in his entire professional life, taking on the most terrifying, fluid, and violent prodigy Philadelphia has produced since the golden era of the sport. If you call yourself a boxing fan, grab a drink, turn off your notifications, and lock in. Because today, we are breaking down the biggest contract signing in combat sports history. From the secret negotiations and the $250 million purse split to the technical breakdown that will determine who leaves the ring as the absolute god of modern boxing. To truly understand why this fight feels like a tectonic shift in combat sports, you have to rewind the tape and examine the bitter, Cold War tension that built this explosive pressure cooker over the last half-decade. Boxing rivalries aren't built overnight. They are forged in the quiet moments of disrespect, the missed opportunities, and the unspoken fear that lingers between 2 men who know they are the apex predators of their era. For years, Terence Crawford operated like a mythical ghost in the welterweight and super welterweight divisions. When Bud systematically dismantled Errol Spence Jr. in July of 2023, delivering a masterclass so flawless it looked like an execution, the boxing world thought they had seen the absolute peak of human fight science. Crawford didn't just win that night. He stripped the soul out of an elite world champion, switching southpaw, walking down a powerhouse, and dropping him repeatedly until the referee had to step in and save Spence from his own courage. At that exact moment, Terence Crawford was elevated to a level of superstardom where he could virtually pick his own destiny. He set his sights on legacy, moving up weight classes, taking impossible risks, and eventually securing the monumental victory against Canelo Alvarez in late 2025 that cemented his name alongside Sugar Ray Leonard, Henry Armstrong, and Muhammad Ali. Crawford had conquered 4 divisions, became undisputed in 2, and beat the face of Mexican boxing. By all conventional boxing logic, Crawford had nothing left to prove to anyone. He was a living legend, wealthy beyond imagination, and creeping closer to his late 30s with a flawless record intact. But while Crawford was climbing the mountain of historical greatness, a storm was brewing down in the lower divisions. A storm named Jaron "Boots" Ennis. Hailing from the hard-nosed, relentless fighter factory of Philadelphia, Boots Ennis was not your average rising contender. He was a visual masterpiece in boots, switch-hitting seamlessly, throwing combinations from angles that defied geometry, and finishing opponents with a sadistic, smiling charisma. Ennis blew through the welterweight rankings like a hurricane. He was dropping world-class contenders with jab-cross combinations while looking at the front-row crowd. He was dodging 5-punch flurries with his hands at his waist, countering with liver shots that folded grown men in half. Yet, for all his brilliance, Ennis kept hitting a brick wall made of boxing politics. Promoters protected their prized fighters from him. belt organizations dragged their feet. When Crawford was the undisputed champion at 147 pounds, Ennis was his mandatory challenger, the young, hungry lion barking at the gate. But the fight never materialized. Belts were stripped, business decisions were made, and a narrative was born. The media began to whisper. Fans on social media started shouting. Asterisk, is Bud ducking Boots? Is the old king scared of the young killer? Or is Boots just clout chasing off a legend's name without bringing any real pay-per-view revenue to the table? Asterisk, the tension between the two camps metastasized into genuine hatred. Crawford, never one to bite his tongue, publicly dismissed Ennis on podcasts and social media. Crawford famously tweeted cryptic jabs after Ennis's fights, downplaying his performances, calling him overhyped, and claiming that while Boots looked great against level B opposition, stepping in front of a master surgeon like himself would result in a brutal reality check. Ennis fired back with cold, Philly arrogance. During fight weeks, when reporters brought up Crawford's name, Boots didn't show reverence, he showed appetite. Terence Crawford is easy work, Ennis boldly declared to the press. He's an old man holding up the line. He had his time. Now it's my time, and if he ever has the balls to stand across from me in that ring, I'm gonna beat him like he stole something. For years, the boxing public was forced to suffer through this verbal sparring, while the actual fight remained locked behind promoter rivalries, network wars, and purse disagreements. Matchroom wanted it. PBC controlled the legacy networks. The fans were left with empty promises, endless YouTube debates, and the frustrating reality.
Like, what did I get hit with? Couldn't regroup and I don't know, man.
That boxing always seems to kill its greatest matchups before they can bloom. Then came his Excellency Turki Alalshik and Riyadh season. Saudi Arabia changed the fundamental financial physics of professional boxing. When you have a war chest that can move mountains, traditional promoter wars evaporate overnight. Networks fall in line. Sanctioning bodies comply. And fighters who previously demanded astronomical, unrealistic numbers suddenly find a contract on their desk that makes their wildest financial dreams look like pocket change. Behind closed doors over the past 6 months, secret meetings took place in London, Los Angeles, and Riyadh. Crawford's team, led by Brian Bomac McIntyre, made their conditions crystal clear. Crawford was not coming back down or stepping into a high-risk ring unless the money was historic. Not just fight game money, but generational wealth that guaranteed his family's bloodline for a century. Ennis' side, backed by Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, knew this was their one and only shot to catapult Boots into global superstardom. The negotiations almost collapsed 3 separate times. Rehydration clauses were argued over fiercely. Catchweight proposals were thrown in the trash. Glove brands became a major sticking point. Crawford wanted 10-ounce Grant gloves. Ennis insisted on Cleto Reyes for maximum punch power impact. Every microdetail was contested with nuclear intensity because both teams knew what was actually on the line. Somebody's zero is getting erased, and somebody's legacy is getting dismantled forever. Finally, in the late hours of last night, the final barrier fell. A $250 million total event guarantee was greenlit by Riyadh season. The bout was finalized for March 2027 at the iconic Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The news broke like an artillery shell across the sports landscape. The Cold War was over. The hot war had just been declared. When news of a $250 million deal leaks to the press, the first thing every boxing fanatic wants to know is simple. Asterisk, how does that money get sliced up? And what are the secret clauses hidden in the fine print? Asterisk, sources close to the deal have revealed a purse distribution structure that reflects both Crawford's unmatched historical resume and Ennis' status as the ultimate dangerous challenger. Out of the $250 million total financial commitment, which includes site fees, global pay-per-view projections, international broadcast rights, and sponsorship guarantees, Terence "Bud" Crawford is set to walk away with a guaranteed baseline purse of $135 million. Jaron "Boots" Ennis will secure a career-high guaranteed payout of $85 million, with the remaining $30 million allocated to undercard allocations and win bonus incentives. To put those numbers into perspective, this payout shatters previous combat sports records, putting Crawford versus Ennis in the ultra-exclusive tier of Mayweather versus Pacquiao and Mayweather versus McGregor. It is a monetary declaration that this isn't just a fight, it is a cultural event. But the real story isn't just the money. It's the lethal specifics written into the bout contract. After extensive back-and-forth debates where Crawford's team initially flirted with a catch weight of 158 pounds following his triumph at 168 pounds against Canelo, Ennis's camp held firm. The fight will officially take place at the junior middleweight limit of 154 pounds. This is a massive tactical detail. For Boots Ennis, 154 pounds represents his physical prime, a weight class where his speed, explosive power, and frame hit absolute peak efficiency. For Crawford, returning to 154 requires a disciplined, calculated weight cut after bulking up to challenge the super middleweight giants. Crawford's camp fought tooth and nail for a strict same-day weight check to ensure Ennis doesn't walk into the ring looking like a light heavyweight on fight night. The compromise? A standard 10-pound rehydration cap measured at 8 a.m. on the morning of the fight. If either man exceeds 164 pounds at that morning check, a punishing penalty of $2 million per pound will be deducted directly from their purse. Third, the ring size and gloves. The contract specifies a custom 20-foot ring, a standard size that favors neither a pure runner nor a pure inside brawler, forcing maximum engagement in the center of the canvas. Crawford will wear his trusted, padded 10-ounce Grant gloves designed for precision hand protection and shock absorption, while Ennis will wear 10-ounce Cleto Reyes puncher's gloves designed to maximize kinetic damage on impact. With the contract ink fully set, both men have retreated into complete isolation, transforming their respective camps into high-altitude, lockdown torture chambers. In Colorado Springs, Terence Crawford has,
From a young age, never give up. And if you shoot for the stars and you crash and burn on the way, just keep going. And I'm gonna keep going and keep reaching for them stars.
reassembled his legendary training enclave alongside his lifelong trainer Brian Bomac McIntyre, Red Spikes, and Esau Dieguez. Crawford's camp is notoriously secretive, but insiders report that Bud has brought in 3 distinct types of sparring partners to replicate Boots Ennis's unique style. To simulate Ennis's switch-hitting chaos, Crawford is sparring with world-class, ultra-fast southpaws who are instructed to aggressively change angles mid-combination. To simulate Boots' hand speed and upper body head movement, Crawford has hired young, hyper-athletic amateur prodigies with instructions to throw relentless 6-punch flurries from the opening bell. Crawford's physical conditioning at age 39 is being treated with military precision. Utilizing hyperbaric oxygen chambers, advanced cryotherapy, and custom biomechanical tracking, his team is optimizing his nervous system to ensure that his reaction time, the key element of his legendary counterpunching, does not drop by even a single millisecond. Crawford isn't training like a satisfied rich man riding into the sunset. He is training like a paranoid killer who knows that a loss to Jaron Ennis would burn down the house of legacy he built brick by brick over 20 years. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, Jaron Boots Ennis and his father trainer Bozy Ennis have constructed a camp focused on absolute demolition. The atmosphere inside the Ennis gym is electric, intense, and soaked in sweat. Bozy Ennis has always maintained that his son possesses a toolset that no fighter in history can prepare for because Boots doesn't fight off a script. He fights off pure, instinctual flow. Ennis's training regimen for this fight is built on brutal cardiovascular volume and explosive torque power. Boots is running high-elevation mountain sprints in total darkness, lifting heavy resistance chains, and pounding hundreds of rounds on the heavy bag while wearing weighted vests. His sparring partners are being rotated every 2 rounds, fresh, aggressive fighters instructed to push Boots to his absolute physical limits, mimicking Crawford's ability to switch tactics and apply late-round mental pressure. Bud thinks he's seen everything, Bozy Ennis stated in a recent rare interview from camp. He thinks because he beat Spence and outpointed Canelo that nobody can touch him. But Terence has never faced a guy who can hit him harder, faster, and from more ridiculous angles than he can. We aren't going in there to win a decision. We are going in there to retire Terence Crawford. The psychological mind games have already begun. While Boots posts daily training clips showcasing terrifying hand speed, Crawford has gone completely dark on social media, a clear sign that Bud has entered his notorious dark zone, where he cuts off all external noise and hyperfocuses on the destruction of his target. The stage is set, the money is locked in escrow, and the training camps are pushing both men to the outer edge of human endurance. Now, let's peel back the layers and analyze the fascinating, high-stakes tactical chess match that will unfold when these two master technicians step inside the squared circle. When you examine Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis purely through the lens of fight mechanics, you are looking at two of the most complete, dangerous, and versatile boxers to ever put on a pair of gloves. This isn't a classic matchup of boxer versus brawler or speed versus power. This is mastermind versus monster, a collision between two hyper-intelligent switch hitters who possess master's degrees in human anatomy and kinetic violence. Let's break down the technical warfare system by system. Both Crawford and Ennis are elite switch hitters, but they utilize stance switching in fundamentally different ways. Terence Crawford starts most fights in a traditional orthodox stance, using his sharp jab to measure distance, calculate his opponent's rhythm, and download data like a biological supercomputer. Once Crawford processes his opponent's timing, usually by the third or fourth round, he switches to southpaw. When Crawford goes southpaw, his back leg becomes a loaded spring, his right hand turns into a jab/hook control device, and his straight left hand becomes a sniper rifle. His stance switch is tactical, defensive, and designed to negate his opponent's best weapons while opening up line-of-sight counter lanes. Jaron Ennis, on the other hand, switches stances fluidly mid-combination. Boots doesn't just switch stances between rounds or during resets. He will throw a left jab from orthodox, step through into southpaw while throwing a right hook, and
154. Where's Tim Tszyu sit in there?
It's becoming the hottest division right now. 135 is still really high. We've got some of the lighter weights. 26 is really hot. 68, 75. We've got some hot divisions right now. I feel like 154 might be the most competitive division in boxing right now. And I think Tim is still, even with the loss that he got to Fundora, we saw how the fight unfolded, why it unfolded, or possibly why it unfolded the way that it did. Tim's been in the top 3 at 154. I think 2023. I think that was the first time I come over there to Australia. Ever since.
end the combination in orthodox with a liver shot, all in the span of 5 seconds. Ennis's stance switching is chaotic, offensive, and designed to create visual sensory overload for his opponent. He attacks from angles that shouldn't exist, making it almost impossible for defenders to predict where the next power shot is coming from. Crawford's stance switching is more disciplined and structured, while Ennis's is more spontaneous and explosive. If Crawford can predict the rhythm of Ennis's stance transitions, he can catch Boots mid-step when his feet are momentarily crossed. A flaw Crawford exposed against Errol Spence Jr., however. If Ennis moves too fast for Crawford to read, Boots' seamless transitions will split Crawford's guard and create severe visual confusion. Terence Crawford is arguably the greatest distance manager and counterpuncher of his generation. He operates with a high-level sense of ring geometry. Crawford baits opponents into throwing lead hands by leaving his chin slightly exposed, only to pull back by a fraction of an inch and return fire with a devastating, short-arc counter-hook. His counterpunching relies on patience, timing, and psychological manipulation. He makes fighters doubt their own jab until they stop throwing it altogether. Ennis counters differently. Instead of relying purely on pullbacks, Boots utilizes slipped shots accompanied by rapid upper body rolling. Ennis slides off the center line, lets punches graze past his hair, and immediately uncorks explosive multi-punch counters to the body and head. His hand speed is noticeably faster than Crawford's at this stage of their careers, allowing him to throw 3-punch counter flurries in the same time window it takes Crawford to throw a single sharp countercross. Hand speed belongs to Ennis. Timing belongs to Crawford. As the old boxing adage goes, asterisk timing beats speed, and precision beats power. Asterisk, but there comes a point where dynamic speed paired with high volume can overwhelm even the best timing. If Crawford's reflexes have slowed even 5% due to age, Ennis's raw speed will dominate the counter-exchanges. This is where the fight turns from a chess match into a bloody war of attrition. Crawford possesses an extraordinarily nasty mean streak inside the pocket. He is a master of wrestling inside, framing with his elbows, tying up the lead arm of his opponent and delivering short, grueling uppercuts to the solar plexus. Crawford's body attack isn't just about scoring points. It's about physically breaking his opponent's spirit and taking their legs away for the late rounds. Ennis is equally lethal downstairs, but his body attack is more explosive. Boots loves to throw wide, whipping hooks to the liver and spleen from both southpaw and orthodox stances. He shifts his weight violently onto his front foot, sinking hooks deep into the ribs of his opponents. However, in his recent unification bout against Xander Zayas, Ennis showed moments of vulnerability when pushed onto his back foot, taking surprising inside shots while relying on his chin to get out of trouble. The tactical edge Crawford is the far more disciplined inside fighter. If Ennis gets overly aggressive, gets sloppy, or leaves his chin floating in the air after throwing wide body shots, Crawford will punish him with razor-sharp inside uppercuts. However, Ennis's sheer physical size, youth, and body-punching power could force Crawford into a defensive shell if Bud gets backed up against the ropes. The arena lights lower inside Allegiant Stadium. Over 70,000 fanatical boxing fans are roaring at a deafening pitch. The tension inside the building is so thick you can feel it in your chest. In the blue corner stands Jaron "Boots" Ennis, 29 years old, ripped to shred, bouncing on his toes with supreme confidence. In the red corner stands Terence "Bud" Crawford, 39 years old, stone-faced, staring through Ennis with eyes that look like cold steel. The referee calls them to the center of the ring, gives the instructions and shouts, "Asterisk, let's get it on." Asterisk, the opening bell rings, and the atmosphere erupts. Both men meet in the center of the canvas. Ennis immediately assumes an orthodox stance, firing lightning-fast jab-jab combinations to probe Crawford's guard. Crawford stands grounded, holding a high guard, catching most of the jab volume on his gloves while studying Ennis's foot positioning. Ennis isn't waiting around. In round 2, Boots switches to southpaw mid-glide, throwing a blinding double jab followed by a hard left hand to Crawford's body. Crawford absorbs it, steps back, and counters with a crisp right jab over the top. The speed difference is immediately noticeable. Ennis is firing punches like a machine gun, while Crawford is acting like a patient sniper, absorbing shots, downloading data, and keeping his pitch-perfect distance. By round 3, the chess match escalates. Ennis lands a heavy right hook that snaps Crawford's head back, drawing an audible gasp from the Vegas crowd. Crawford simply smirks, taps his gloves together, and steps right back into the danger zone. The round ends with Crawford firing his first real combination, a 3-punch sequence that grazes Ennis's jaw. At the start of round 4, Crawford officially makes his signature tactical move.
Back-to-back losses in the fight game can be really hurtful. So particularly for a guy like Tim who wants to be the king of the 154 division, maybe ratings-wise to a lot of people he is, but in terms of belts he's not. So this is where Tim needs to make a statement in this fight and then over the next 12 months to become potentially a unified champion at Superweight.
Switches southpaw. The dynamic of the fight instantly changes. Crawford begins to control the lead foot battle, stepping outside of Ennis's front foot and establishing a piercing jab that repeatedly breaks through Ennis's guard. Midway through round 4, Crawford times an Ennis entry perfectly, unleashing a straight left hand down the pipe that catches Boots flush on the point of the chin. Ennis's knees buckle momentarily, the first real moment of danger for the young superstar. Ennis recovers instantly, showing a champion's heart, and fires back with a ferocious 4-punch flurry that forces Crawford against the ropes. The crowd goes wild as both men trade heavy shots in the pocket before the bell sounds. Round 5 and 6 become a war of attrition. Ennis begins utilizing his size and high-volume output to press Crawford backwards. He targets Crawford's midsection with brutal, whipping hooks, attempting to weaken the veteran's legs. Crawford responds with surgical precision, picking off punches and landing devastating lead right hooks as Ennis steps inside. It is elite-level violence, high-speed, brutal impacts, and flawless ring IQ on display from both sides. As we cross into the second half of the fight, the physical tax of the bout begins to show. In round 7, Ennis lands his absolute best punch of the night, a sweeping, unseen left hook thrown from a switch southpaw angle that lands clean on Crawford's temple. Crawford's legs give out, And for only the second time in his legendary career, his glove touches the canvas. Down goes Crawford. The stadium explodes into absolute pandemonium. Crawford gets up at the count of 4, his eyes clear but furious. Ennis rushes in to finish the job, throwing wildly to score the stoppage. But this is where Terence Crawford's mythical ring intelligence takes over. Instead of panicking, Crawford wraps Ennis in a tight clinch, smothers his arms, buys precious recovery time, and whispers something directly into Boots' ear. When the referee breaks them, Crawford does not back away, he goes into full killer mode. In round 8, a refreshed Crawford meets an exhausted Ennis in the center of the ring. Ennis expended massive energy trying to finish Crawford in round 7, and his hands are coming back just a split second slower. Crawford takes immediate advantage. He slips a lazy jab from Ennis and counters with a vicious, short right hook flush to the chin. Ennis wobbles. Crawford doesn't let him breathe. Bud steps in with a relentless 6-punch combination. Left straight, right hook, left uppercut, right hook to the body, left hook to the head. Ennis is hurt badly, leaning against the ropes as Crawford rains down calculated, merciless punishment. In round 9, Crawford delivers his masterpiece. Seeing that Ennis is bleeding from his right eye and breathing heavily through his mouth, Crawford sets a trap. He feints a jab to the body, forcing Ennis to drop his guard, and uncorks a monumental, bone-crushing left uppercut right down the center channel. Ennis's head snaps back violently. His mouthpiece flies into the 3rd row, and his body collapses to the canvas like a deck of cards. Ennis tries with every fiber of his soul to pull himself up using the ropes, driven by pure Philadelphia pride. He gets to his knees at the count of 8, but his legs are completely rubberized. The referee looks into Ennis's vacant eyes, sees he cannot intelligently defend himself, and steps in to wave off the fight. When the dust settles inside Allegiant Stadium and the ring lights fade, the fallout from this $250 million spectacle will rewrite the history books forever. For Jaron "Boots" Ennis, there is no shame in this defeat. At 29 years old, he stepped up to face the ultimate final boss of combat sports, dropped the legend, pushed him to the brink of disaster, and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he belongs at the absolute pinnacle of world boxing. Ennis will rebuild. He will learn from the micro-tactical mistakes exposed by a master surgeon, and he will undoubtedly reign as the undisputed king of the division for years to come. For Terence "Bud" Crawford, this victory solidifies something far greater than just another title or another massive paycheck. By stepping up, taking on the young boogeyman everyone claimed he was dodging, absorbing his best shot, and knocking him out cold in round 9, Crawford seals his argument as the single greatest pound-for-pound fighter in boxing history. He didn't run from the future, he conquered it. He didn't play it safe. He put his undefeated record, his health, and his legacy on the line for $250 million and the ultimate glory. March 2027 isn't just a date on a calendar anymore. It is the date that boxing reclaims its throne as the undisputed king of combat sports. 2 men, 1 ring, $250 million, and an eternal spot in the pantheon of legends.